Hey, welcome back. It's time for one of our favorite shows. It's time for This Week with Wendy. The one show, maybe the only show, that talks about what we call the SoCal estate of mind. With our host, Wendy Ross, who after decades of working in real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley and Orange County, she decided, it's time for something different. And so she created that, Veracity Real Estate. A renewed commitment to bespoke client advocacy at all price levels is what it's all about. Something you don't see in high-cost markets like Southern California. Through it all, she's built a company, data-driven decision makers who use data to tell the truth. And truth be told, that's not something we hear a lot of these days. So I look forward to the truth as Wendy sees it today, looking into her crystal ball filled with a bunch of data. I picture like little data flakes floating down in the white snowflake ball here.
They're swirling around in there with a whole lot of snark.
Yeah, right. And the little data, they come together for a second. What did that say? No, then it breaks apart into a...
Oh, my goodness.
That's my image of what you're
It's
doing.
a new Disney franchise.
It could be.
My chief branding officer speaks.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, she came in coughing, and now she got me coughing here, so don't...
I thought I heard a little something.
Yeah.
So you just stay over there on that side of the plexi and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think we're
because
all
I'm
good.
finally better. So
We've been bouncing back in and out of the infirmary.
it's been ridiculous, right? I mean, I know the whole world is sick and I'm not feeling sorry for myself. And thank goodness we didn't have COVID or RSV or anything else.
We officially had the crud.
I know
Is that
that was
what it was?
the
Yes.
actual diagnosis.
The diagnosis from a physician was, you have the crud.
Wow. Well,
I was there. It's true.
I don't even... There should be a joke in there somewhere.
I can't
but-
even make these things up. It's true.
Oh, my goodness.
I know my life sounds like it should be one skit or pun after another, and I'm a stand-up comedian, but
Someone
no,
needs to follow us
these are
around.
always the truths I tell.
Something
Yeah.
tells
Right.
me it's going to be an interesting year here.
It is. And in spite of us and our typical abnormality,
Our typical abnormality. I
yeah,
like that.
that's our norm
That's
is
the new
abnormal.
normal.
Remember?
true.
Yeah, but anyway, but the market statistics, conversely, are starting to look a bit more normal, and the tone of the marketplace has changed quite a bit at the same time. So it's interesting. I asked again for Kara Stewart, my chief brand officer, to join me and help unearth these changes in mood that we're seeing out there in the marketplace. And for those of you who don't know, again, she's my chief brand officer, and she runs all the marketing endeavors for my company, Veracity Real Estate. So, a frequent contributor here to OC Talk Radio, even before me.
Yes.
So it's going to be a fun little tete-a-tete.
BW.
BW.
BW, before Wendy.
Before was there a station before Wendy, or did this really put it on the map here?
I like to think that it paled before I got
I
here.
think so. It was just a quiet conversation. Now it's
And now he's ready to censor me.
yeah, exactly. If people knew, like Wendy comes like 30 seconds before the show. From the moment she arrives, there's immediately, this sense of, oh my God, the limo arrives and she races up and we're trying to get her and everything. It's just like, it's like dealing with big giant celebrities. It's
She
exactly
is a
what
big giant celebrity. We
I'm
do
a
the
busy
show.
human.
Yes, we do the show weekly.
Other people arrive an hour before. We casually get ready and everything here. Wendy
Oh,
comes-
no.
There's immediate something swirling the minute she arrives.
My clients deserve more of my time than that.
You give
Burning
them
an
every
hour
second.
on chit chat means I'm not doing research for them or addressing a contract
That's
for
the truth.
them. And got priorities, people.
Priorities.
But you
No,
gotta
no,
talk to
no.
us. We got
It's
fans,
true.
Yeah.
No.
In between client meetings and dealing with the market right now, she has speaking engagements and trainings, and she's building up her team and other media appearances. Sorry, Paul. So we fit everything in, though, don't we?
Yeah. Yep.
But today's show is we've affectionately dubbed Attitudes and Gratitudes, because when you've been telling me about the dialogue between buyers and sellers and how it's changed, I live in a media world, of course. Agents aren't really helping this environment, and all I could think about is that trending audio that you're probably seeing right now on TikTok and Instagram, which are two siblings fighting, saying, "He touched me, he touched me." You even used it for your pups, Oliver and Harley.
I did. Guilty.
Guilty because the little pup keeps running up and tackling the big pup, and the
Right.
big pup runs away and saying, I can hear him saying, he touched me, Mom.
He's touching me.
He's
No,
touching
I'm not.
me. He's touching me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how everyone seems to be behaving. And it's not surprising that audio resonated with me and everybody else, because that crankiness of the siblings fighting with each other is exactly the tone that we're seeing in the marketplace now. And that's not what I expected. I mean, I knew It was frustrating, in the thick of COVID when things were just stupidly crazy. But now that we're pushing through it, I think everyone is just so exhausted and fatigued by it. They have no patience for anyone, and it's really starting to show. It's something.
It is some really bad behaviors you're seeing there. And we're going to talk about how buyers and sellers are losing out because of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think to a degree it is actually adversely impacting their net goal. So, it's part of the conversation we should have because it's not all data. But I do love my data. So let's just put a pin in that for a minute and talk about what's happening in Orange County real estate so far this month and this year. In January home sales, I have to say, they've continued to perform better than or from what I understand, most anybody expected. I thought it was going to be just frozen. But sales are really starting to tick up. And as we saw in the last several months, Q3 into Q4 last year, Orange County's gap between listings available and homes sold is much narrower than other areas in California. And that does still continue to be the case, even though so far this month we've only sold about, 3/4 of what we normally would have by this time. We only have about 3/4 of the inventory we normally would have. So that's trending more towards normal. But sales are just over half what they would be. So the gap between the number of homes for sale and the number of homes sold so far this month has widened a bit more than in the past. But we still have one more week of January to go. And historically, I've mentioned this before, in the last week of any month, there tends to be a push and a surge to get things done, by the end of the month. So let's see what happens in another week. Even if we don't close that gap and we still have a little bit more inventory than sales, we're no worse off than anyone else. We're still better off than other SoCal counties. So it's still okay. It's just getting kind of normalish, We have just over 2,500 active listings, just over 800 in escrow right now, and we sold roughly 800 so far this month. So that's the paltry figure. Median price ticked down just a bit. We've been wobbling right around 940. As of last week, as of 2 days ago, it's at 930,000. And that puts us at just over 3 months worth of inventory. So it's taking about 96 days if we were to sell through all the active inventory at the current rate of escrow. And while that sounds like a hideously large number, that's normal. December and January historically were in the 90-day range. So we're right there, and we have much higher interest rates than we have for 20 years. So, in that, context, this isn't terrible. I still think that things are they're going to normalize, and one stat that we really have to keep an eye on is we're still getting 99% of what sellers are asking for prices. So at a 99% list price versus sold price versus list price ratio, that's a strong sign. I don't think prices are really going to go fast, if at all, in Orange County.
The market is not falling.
It's
Chicken
really
Little.
It's not. And a lot of people waited for that. So, they can keep waiting, I guess. But.
Well, maybe because they keep waiting or they're expecting something else to happen, we're seeing some of these behaviors, these attitudes and gratitudes. So let's segue now into some of those peevish buyers and sellers and more. Across the media and in cafe culture and cafe conversations, we're all hearing that home sales are down, that Chicken Little phenomenon. Yeah. Rates did drop a bit, and buyers are out there competing. And that's kind of globally across the United States.
Yes.
But here in Orange County, you've had really qualified buyers with excellent credit and substantial assets write full price offers, not even get counters because buyers are offering substantially more.
It's nuts. I in my career, I have never seen a phenomenon like this where repeatedly, and we're talking about buyers who are not first-time buyers, who are seasoned, who have millions of dollars of provable assets in the bank, who have perfect credit, who are writing non-contingent offers at full asking price and not even getting the courtesy of a response from the seller. That's bizarre. It's bizarre. And, all I can assume is that the sellers are probably acting on guidance of their brokers or lack of guidance from their brokers. And that dismays me.
There's a rampant lack of professionalism.
Well, there is too much of it, for sure. My heart warms when I come across, another real estate professional who's professional. And it's tragic that that's a rarity and that brings so much joy because one would expect it just to be, every day.
That's table stakes, yeah.
Right.
If we could characterize the mood, it seems like everyone is simply exhausted.
Yeah.
We can't deny the fact that we came out of COVID and all of the turmoil that that created. Last year, we came out of the gate. We're going to make this normal. And by the end of last year, everyone was just exhausted. And now
Yeah.
we're entering this market. It's heating up. There's other factors weighing in on us. And that's reacting or resulting rather in some unfortunate reactions.
Yeah, and I really think you nailed it. I think exhaustion is the operating word here. I think everyone's exhausted. And I don't know about you, but I know me. And when I'm exhausted, I'm not my best self. I don't necessarily make the best decisions. I'm not my nicest self. You know, you've heard me, there are times I'm like, I just don't have any nice left. So I'm going to divorce myself from society right now and do you all a favor and go away. And
Cranky Pants needs to hibernate.
Totally, totally. But what I'm seeing is that buyers and sellers who are out there, they're out there because they need to. They need to sell, they need to buy, they need to move. And so they're kind of begrudgingly going into the marketplace and just being grumpy pants about it, you know, and it's not serving them well. And I think in any area where one hires a professional advisor, the advisor is beholden to say, you might want to just put a pin in that. You know, I understand that you're frustrated. This is frustrating. We're all exhausted. But let's give them some grace on the other side. You know, let's stop and think, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, the sellers clearly have a family they're going to have to move, and they clearly have to find another house, or they have found another house, and they're also juggling with a higher mortgage payment. Just a little grace. You know, is that so much to ask?
A little grace, a little common sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's one troublesome behavior you're seeing among buyers? Something that could spell disaster for them, perhaps?
Well, it's challenging because I think they're hearing there's so much inventory on the market, and in Orange County, there's not. And they're looking for perfection, you know, and even before the pandemic, I would advise clients, you know, let's say that there's a list of criteria that you want in your dream home. Getting 100% of your list is virtually impossible. If we're in the 90% range, that's a win. You know, and buyers now are exhausted and they want what they want. They want what they see in the magazines. They want what they see on TV shows. And they're not understanding that we curate what we're showing you in magazines and on the TV shows. Those are also not perfect. Those are also 90% homes. You know, but people are fatigued and they want perfection. And that's why the prettiest homes on the market are the ones that are selling first. But even then, you know, I have clients that were looking at an incredibly beautiful home, and they wanted privacy, and they wanted a view, and it had sweeping valley views. It was just stunning. And they got so hung up on spending 2 and 3 days with their measuring tapes and painter's tape, measuring to see if their furniture was going to fit in this house, that they missed it, and it sold out from under them. And they're still looking backward at that going, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, yeah. Remember me? I was the one saying, write the offer, write the offer, write the offer. If you find for some reason it's not going to work for you, we'll do your investigations and we can gracefully pull out, you know, quickly, do the seller a favor, right? Make sure that there's legitimate reason here. But if you don't open the escrow, you're not going to get the house. And waiting for the world to stop for you to indulge your whims is naive, and you need not do it.
Are they learning from their behavior?
Some. Not all.
Yeah. But for buyers, really, the message here is that Cinderella's glass slipper does not exist. The 3 little bears do not have just the right bed waiting for you.
And wouldn't it smell like bear hair anyway? I don't know.
Bear hair. Perhaps that's the new signature scent of 2023.
I'm sorry, fur?
Fur. Yeah, I think it's called fur.
I'm a city girl. What do you want?
All right there. Didn't expect that one.
Welcome to Wendyville.
Welcome to Wendyville, where bear hair exists and sellers are acting like ogres. Let's just continue on with this fairy tale analogy. See, it's Disney. Come for us. She's ready for you. Here's your next Disney princess.
Oh, no. I'm not
queen.
fit for the family audience.
It's a new genre there. All right, so these ogres are making it difficult for buyers. How are you seeing that these sellers are making it more difficult? What are some behaviors that you're seeing? So hopefully you do not do this.
You know, it's really interesting. I'm seeing things that we haven't seen for a while that dismay me. And one is listings saying only cash offers. And there's a lot of layers to that particular statement, you know, because we as agents and even individuals as home sellers are not allowed to place restrictions on who writes an offer on your house unless it is relative to their ability to pay. So in many of these cases where they're saying only cash offers, well, there are, buy and rehab loans. So if it's a property condition situation where you're assuming that financing won't work, that's not an assumption that you're really allowed to make. And that's challenging, and I as a broker can't go to that broker and say, you can't do that because then they'll hate my guts. But listen up, people. Do your homework. Are you doing your seller a service if you're putting restrictive statements like that out there, and a savvy buyer who doesn't want to put $1 million into a property, who knows he can finance $500,000 of it, saving $500,000 in cash to rehab the property is smart, by the way. And credit-worthy buyers and investors may elect to do that. And they may think, I don't want to go show this dummy's listing because I don't want to deal with him. I know that's my first thought is this guy's an idiot, And that's my number one pet peeve. But number two, see, I'm peevish too, is really restricting the days and times that the property can be shown. Yes, the market's heating up. It's not a seller's market anymore, though. It's a par market. In certain areas and price points, it is a seller's market, but not enough that you can say you can only come Tuesdays and Saturdays from 1 to 3. I have 2 buyers right now who are literally flying in from another state to look at property. And if you're not going to let us see it for another 5 days, you're going to miss out on a really qualified buyer because they're on a plane somewhere else and they're looking at your competition's houses. Is that really what you want? And I don't think sellers understand this. I don't think someone's having a hard conversation with them saying, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Qualified buyers may be traveling in to see it. Do somebody a courtesy. If they're paying for plane fare, let them see your house, and put a lockbox on there. If you're worried about your Fabergé eggs, your gun collection, or whatever the heck it is you think you have in your house that's so valuable, put a lockbox on there and have your agent put a code on it so only someone who has an approved appointment that you know about has the code and can get in. I wasn't able to show a home yesterday to a very, very qualified buyer because the agent didn't have a lockbox out there and she was busy and couldn't get out there to meet us.
And they were ready to write an offer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, these are things that are easy fixes that I hope people will take to heart and embrace a little bit more.
You mentioned earlier about these turnkey homes on the market now. And so my earlier reference to Cinderella's glass slipper, although in jest, isn't really that imaginary. It's a comparison to a relatively small pool, though, of these turnkey houses that everyone wants and thinks that they're going to be able to obtain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really an interesting phenomenon that I'm seeing right now. 3 out of 4 of my buyers right now are looking for perfection. They want brand new. They want turnkey. They're exhausted by having done rehabs already. They don't feel like they have the money anymore to rehab a home that's not perfect because, the economy is different than it was 2 years ago. The feds aren't throwing money at everybody. So the homes that are the prettiest and in turnkey condition are getting multiple offers and they're getting multiple showings within the first 2 days. It's crazy. And flippers are out there desperate to find something that they can rehab and flip. So the ugliest of homes are getting heat and getting gobbled up, and the most beautiful of homes are getting heat and getting gobbled up. And those in between that are just sort of plain Janes, they're not getting love. So it's hard, though, to quantify this through data because we've got 2 groups that are selling really fast, and we've got the majority, which is in the middle, which is selling the slowest. So altogether, the data is not terribly overwhelming, and regrettably, I can't really pull reliable data based upon good-looking homes and homes that are in desperate disrepair. So we just have to know by talking to experts like me, who are boots on the ground, this is what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, you are you are a data-driven analyst, but there isn't data about home condition. So we do have to rely on first-person experiences like yours. And not all buyers are getting counted on this. You've talked about several well-qualified buyers that are writing well above the asking price even.
Right. And it could be a number of things. I mean, different people who come from different cultures or, who are different ages, simply will not put their best foot forward right out of the gate. They just won't. They can't sleep at night if they do that. And something I saw when I had a really big team and we were just killing it after, the bloodbath of 08, 09, many times we would have these REO listings or short sale listings or what have you, and we would get, 10, 20 offers, and we decided to just counter everybody. Everybody would get a counter offer. It was a little bit more work, but really a surprising phenomenon occurred, and more often than you might expect, the lowest offer soared and became the highest offer. So to prejudge and assume, oh, this person only came in at full price, well, this person offered full price plus 2% or what have you, that's a judgment call that really is not wise. The sellers are leaving money on the table. And if agents or brokers are telling the sellers, just counter the highest offer or just counter the highest 2 offers, you are leaving money on the table, I promise you. It is not a good policy. And sellers, remember this. My buyers right now are all too aware of it, because at the moment, I don't have any first-time buyers. All of my buyers are seasoned. And I guess that's because seasoned buyers tend to want to work with somebody who's highly analytical like me, that they know is going to, give them highly nuanced information. But when there is a buyer who knows, I want to live in a home like this, of this size, in this community, they've looked at everything on the market. And when your home comes on the market, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your first offers are very often the best and the most committed buyers. And not countering the first people who write you offers is stupid. I'm going to say it. It's dumb. Pay attention.
She said it. She said the S word, Paul.
You're throwing out so much stuff, I can't even take it all in here today. This is a very opinionated show here.
It's a darn good thing you record it.
Yeah. Gonna have to listen to it again and again and
over
again.
and over and over. Well, yeah.
But, it keeps going back to the mantra that you say again, and that all real estate is local. It's ringing truer and truer and truer.
Yeah.
It's hyper local, because the OC market is heating up faster than anyone anticipated.
And again, different parts of it are heating up differently, and different types of product are heating up differently, like I said. And Stephen Thomas, we talk about him occasionally. He's a local quantitative economist, and he anticipates that buyer demand is going to continue to surge faster than any of us predicted. And that should start to eat into the supply of listings, again, which should erode the days on market, which is going to make it really obvious to everyone a little bit later that median price is stable, and to wait for them to fall is foolish. And this sentiment is echoed by Adam Data and Altos Research, and pretty much everyone who studies regional market trends. These are all real estate data think tanks. They're not trying to sell you anything. They are just real estate data analysts like me. They have a bigger name, so you should listen to them.
We had Rick Sharga on the show a few weeks ago, who was speaking this truth as well.
Yeah, from Adam Data. And the man has been in the industry for years. He knows what he's talking about.
It's on the nightly news frequently, so pay attention.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned that you're working with a few real estate investors right now.
Right.
2 of whom I know are from outside of California.
Right.
What's the forecast for other prospective investors? What do you want them to know?
It's getting skinny. We're running out of ugly ducklings to rehab. And even if there are ugly ducklings to rehab, the prices aren't dropping drastically, and the cost to finance them is going up for everyone. And even if an investor is buying it with cash, his cost to rehab and build is more, and his days on market, so the time he's gonna have to carry this, he or she, is going to be longer, which equates to money. Excuse me. See, I still have a little bit of lingering cough.
We do, yes.
It's been 2 weeks. Anyway, so what I keep telling my local buyers and investors is, you may not have a fix and flip opportunity like you did last year or the year before or even pre-COVID, but pay attention. Again, the Olympic Games are coming. So if you're looking for a rental property, we're already seeing median lease rates in Anaheim go up. And I do think that's mostly because there are more newer homes in Anaheim, and newer luxury condos and apartments and things tend to push up lease price. But the Honda Center is hosting some of the Olympic Games. That is a very, very smart place to buy a rental property, because it's not just going to be athletes that are going there. There's going to be media. There's going to be people who are working in concessions and food and beverage. All the restaurants and businesses near there are going to be adding staff to deal with all the people who are coming to view these games. Very, very smart place to make an investment. And again, if in Irvine, if the Great Park does manage to ink the deal that they've been pursuing with the Olympics and get the water polo there, same thing. And I'm not saying that you have to buy an investment property in Great Park. necessarily. Those can be a little bit more expensive for an investor to hold because of the property taxes and the HOAs, but you can buy properties near there. So this is what I'm telling people to do. Be cognizant of what's happening. And, I've got one investor who's looking at the Belmont Shore area because that's closer to his adult children. They're going to be hosting some of the Olympic Games there. So some of the sailing regattas are going to come right out of, that Belmont Shore Harbor. So, there are ways to make money in this market.
Yeah, that's right. For people outside this area who don't realize it, the Summer Games in 2028 will be held in Los Angeles. But in this context, Los Angeles doesn't mean the city limits.
Right.
It's really most of the Southland. As you said, there are going to be events and games in Belmont Shore, the Long Beach portion, here in Orange County. Anaheim has been mentioned, potentially Irvine. And that coupled with our already embedded attractions, Knott's Berry Farm and Disneyland and Medieval Times and
our
add
just
to the
miles
mix.
of coastline. It's gorgeous
Miles
here.
of coastline, the city of Costa Mesa, which is established as the city of arts. There's a lot of attractions and reasons for people to come stay, spend money, really make it more than simply about the games. And if you're looking toward the future about buying or selling, keep that in mind. It's not just about what your little nest egg can do for you right now.
2028 is only 5 years away. And anyone who's looking to buy a piece of real estate and hold it for less than 5 years, unless you're a professional flipper and you've got the economy of scale to rehab all these properties for, everyday, Joe and Jane buyer, that's not a good idea. You should be planning to hold it for at least 5 years. And believe me when I tell you, when these investors who are out there not finding other investments pay attention and they start buying properties in these hotbeds I'm talking about, they're going to drive the prices up and you're going to miss out. And I don't want individual families in Orange County to miss out on making investments that benefit their portfolio and their legacy planning for their children. I don't want you to. I want you to grab every opportunity that you have. That's why I'm here telling you.
That's
all
what
of you.
you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So while it's important to speak about buyers and sellers and their attitudes and gratitudes, we all know that most of these folks are being guided by real estate brokers and agents. These people are supposed to be trusted advisors. But as we talked about in several previous shows, some of these so-called professionals are simply committing some crazy shenanigans, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's break down some of this bad behavior. It's one thing to talk about it in a macro level. What do you want buyers and sellers to be on the lookout for so that they actually can spot it and say something about it?
Well, again, for sellers, I can't overstate this enough. Counter all the offers. At least the first batch that come in the first week. Just counter them all. And it doesn't take that much more work. It is not that much more work for us. We do everything electronically now. It's not like when I first got in the business, we were literally doing it by hand. Make your broker do the work. Absolutely. And for buyers, make sure that whomever you're working with, your agency representation, that they are a polite and prompt communicator. If it takes you a day to get a call back from them, that's what's happening when they're trying to negotiate for you. And that's not acceptable. It's just not. And for my brethren, brokers and agents out there, can we just be nice to each other? Can we just be a little respectful? And I know I'm busy, like we were joking about before we came in here. I don't have an hour to waste on chit chat. But if someone is trying to reach me about something on a contract and I'm busy, I will at least take a moment to text that person back and say, I'm tied up. I can call you back in an hour. Just that little moment of courtesy will go so far. If we all just take a breath and communicate clearly and promptly and respectfully, so many more people are going to get their needs met.
And use technology to your advantage. Set a reminder on your phone so that you can set it and forget it and still keep the deals going.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
You're talking about this increased competition. How many agents do you typically deal with now on a potential deal?
It's interesting because when I heard the National Association of Realtors announce that they had exceeded 1.6 million licensees, I was like, that's a lot of people. And then I looked at how many homes sold nationally. And when you do the math, that equates to about 4.5 homes sold per licensee in the country. And so then if you break that down to states and areas that tend to have a higher per capita number of licensees, California is definitely one of them. And because I can't help myself, I'm a compulsive data geek. I actually took the trouble to take a look at how many licensees there were in the Silicon Valley area versus how many there were in the Orange County area, and we have about 3 times as many per capita as they do. So one can easily assume that there are probably many agents are only doing 1 deal a year. But there's the 80-20 rule. There's the Pareto principle, right? So you can easily assume, given these numbers, you've got between 12 to 20 agents competing over every single deal. And they're starving to death. And they're living on credit cards, or they're back home with their mom and dad. It's shocking how many licensed professionals that sell real estate don't own their own home. A lot of them. I mean, a lot of them. So these people, I'm not saying all people, but some of them are perhaps putting their own needs first. And that could explain why they're not countering all offers, because that could delay things by a day or two, and they are starving. They want to just take this one really good offer and open escrow immediately so I can get paid immediately. And that's not putting the client first or being a fiduciary. That's the kind of thing that I'm seeing that this competition breeds. And I'm expecting that those people who are not high-level professionals, those people who have not chosen to really sharpen the saw and be advocates for their clients, are likely to leave the industry, and that would be a good thing for everybody.
You've come across some who are your friendly neighborhood Uber drivers as well.
I In fact, I told an Uber driver last week that pretty soon every Uber driver is going to have a real estate license, but
Yeah.
that's fine. They gave it a shot. It looks good on TV. Not for everyone.
Before I joined you, Wendy, I didn't realize that many agents are literally totally unsupervised by their brokers, and it's
Yeah.
actually required.
Yeah, this is something that I get asked fairly often by people like, well, what's the difference between an agent and a broker? And I tell them it's just like insurance. You've heard of insurance brokerages like Farmers and insurance agents. Well, the agents are salespeople who work under the auspices and supervision of the broker. And unfortunately, in real estate, many brokers are just brokers on paper. And they haven't even met the agents, no less supervise them and monitor their work. My agents don't write a contract without running it by me first. We collaborate on things because we know that collectively our collective experience is going to come together to make a better outcome for the client. And it's really, really easy when you're putting together a 16-page contract to miss something. And having another set of eyes on it is important. So yeah, I'm a little neurotic about supervision, and it pains me when I see an agent saying and doing things on the other side of a transaction who clearly doesn't know that they're not behaving as they should. And I'm not just saying not behaving nicely or politely. I'm saying breaking the law. And I don't think they know that they're breaking the law. And that's a tough one. Brokers, please, 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 please supervise your agents, because if you don't, what I predicted for my 23 for 23 predictions will come true. And there's going to be a groundswell of lawsuits against agents who represented both buyers and sellers when they feel like they didn't get adequate representation. And unfortunately, in most cases, they will be correct.
You want to put the blame on the newer agents, but you're seeing some really speculative behavior among those who are seasoned agents, right?
Yeah.
Spill the tea.
I see things like they just don't return calls on weekends, which is prime time for real estate. I'm sorry. Many of us work remotely, and the work week has changed a bit for a lot of us. Of course, I work, 7 days a week, but nevertheless, to just not return calls on weekends because you're too important is a disservice to everyone, and it doesn't endear you to anyone, No. Assign someone to return your calls if you don't want to. Forward your phone, for God's sake. Do something. Just
be technology.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something else, too, is I'm shocked. How many people are aware of this? And of those of you listening, how many people are aware that on the California Residential Purchase Agreement, there is actually a section where the seller's broker is supposed to initiate and say, yep, I presented this to my client, and send it back to the other guy. It's a courtesy. It's not a requirement, but it's on the form for a reason, right? I didn't put it there. The state's attorneys did, because it's a good idea. And sellers, how do you know that you're seeing every offer? How do you know? Just these little practices are very smart. And that leads to my next, issue. I am stunned by how many brokers on both sides of the fence, on the seller side or the buyer side, either don't respond to email containing important information and documents at all, or they don't do it expeditiously. I have sent over a withdrawal of offer, which is really important. And because we hadn't opened escrow yet and wanted to make sure that this agent knew that my client was no longer in the running because they kind of shifted gears on what they wanted. And I never got a response back. Like, hello, are you dead? Do you know?
Acknowledge me.
Just acknowledge me. It's not that hard. Text me. And that's another thing. There are many, many seasoned agents who will not accept texts. And they put in all capitals, the private agent remarks, don't text me, you must call me. Okay, fine, but get with the 21st century. 99.9% of the buyers and sellers out there are texting. And be mindful of this. If you put a text out there in the universe, it's proof you said it. If you have a verbal conversation, you got no proof. I like proof.
Document. It protects everyone.
Document.
But there's so much of this prima donna behavior, and we live in I dare to say it, a semi-celebrity culture here in Orange County.
Yes, the fabulosity of it all.
Yes, fabulosity. There's a new word, Paul. We see some
How do I spell that? I got
fabulosity. We see some very high-profile listing agents. The ones, they're on billboards and bus transits and all over social media. And they're treating their listings and their clients like pawns in their game of popularity. And some of the most egregious behavior is coming out of those that we think we should trust the most.
I'm trying not to be nauseous. I've actually had one of my team agents try to make an appointment to sell a high-profile property. But it wasn't like it was $10 million. It was a couple $1 million. And the listing agent literally said, I've never heard of you. No, you can't see it. And the client was an international horse polo investor and competitor that had teams of horses and was coming up from Central America. I mean, they were going to lay down cash for this and probably a couple other properties, across the United States. Couldn't get an appointment to show it because this dumbass didn't know this new agent's name. This was a very well-connected new agent. So, set your ego aside maybe for a minute, pump the brakes, and think about what you're doing here. It is fair to say, can you please help me understand that this is a buyer that's qualified to buy this property? Maybe ask those questions.
Sure, clarifying questions.
That might be a good idea.
Not looky-loos, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's interesting, too, is that a lot of these people whose names you see on the internet, on TV shows, everywhere, they are reviled by their clients. There are some that I know, because, again, I'm a data nerd and I look it up, they have been sued multiple times by their own clients. There are dozens of state complaints lodged against one individual that I know of for just bad behavior and being a bad actor. But this isn't readily accessible publicly if you're not looking for it. And they don't care that their past clients are furious. They just go out there and they say, I sold 200 homes last year. And people are like, oh, okay, I guess I better work with that person. The person is loathed.
I got to interject because we all know some of those same people here. And I wonder, is it because they're doing too much promotion of them and too little selling of their clients' homes?
Yes. And they're actually, once they get the contract signed, what I'm hearing is they're fairly indifferent to their clients' needs. They're not communicating well with their own client, and they're not putting their own client's needs first. There was one that I actually recommended to somebody because I was conflicted out. I couldn't be a part of this transaction in this divorce scenario because I knew one of the parties too well. So I recommended someone who I had never been across the table from this person, but their reputation looked good. And when I'd seen this person at open houses, the communication was friendly and warm and all of these good things. And then when they did hire this person, I was horrified. Just came in barking, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do staging, and you have to use this company and get that out of here. And it just demanding and barking and awful. And when they did end up getting an offer and buyer request for repairs and whatnot, the agent simply sent it over to them, probably through an assistant, and the buyers were left trying to figure out how to respond. No advocacy at all. And when I talked to my friend who was in this particular transaction, he said, yeah, I'm frantically trying to find a part to the dishwasher because they say they want it fixed. And I'm like, wait, what? What? It's a 10-year-old dishwasher. Say no. We're not fixing it. Give them a home warranty. There are many other things you could do. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that.
That is messed up.
I got to ask one more thing because I hear this all the time. We're all attracted to success.
Right.
So if somebody says they're selling 2,000 homes a year, 200 homes a year, all this stuff, that's what I got to be with.
Right.
And yet, when, as you pointed out, no human being could handle that many
It's functionally
transactions.
impossible.
Right.
It is impossible for that expert that you are hiring to read every piece of paper that is important to a transaction. I'm not saying they have to read, all the NHD reports and various environmental reports and studies and things, especially if they're familiar with the marketplace. Their underlings can do that. But when it comes to the contract, addenda, and all the negotiating documents, it is functionally impossible for them to read all of them and conclude more than 100 transactions a
So
year.
they're getting the listings based on their notoriety,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're just churning it over to somebody else, and they're probably not available. They're probably not
Right.
paying much attention because
Right.
they can't do, because they got
Right.
hundreds of these things. they're
And
doing.
and generally speaking, underlings who are willing to work in someone else's shadow usually aren't the most seasoned. And so you're getting the least expert person for the bulk of the transaction. It is functionally impossible for a human being
And
to
they're
read that
probably
many
burning
documents.
through their staff just like they're burning through their customers.
Oh
here.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Teams change, they rotate people in and out all the time. And I'm not saying don't work with someone who's successful. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying don't let that be your guiding star.
Right.
Because
Right.
truthfully, a lot of these people aren't experts. They're great salespeople. They're great at self-promotion, and some of them really are great client advocates. I mean, John McMonagle has come under so much fire over the decades of his career. He's a good dude. He really knows what he's doing. He plays nicely with others. I have nothing but respect for him. But Dean Luke is another one. Dean Luke is a name I bet you've never heard.
I never heard, no.
He is one of the top producing agents in Orange County and has been since the beginning of his career because he is a good guy. He is whip smart. He takes care of his clients. He is an advocate. He doesn't promote himself. He promotes the client's properties. He doesn't need to be a big name out there. He doesn't need people to know his name and his face. He's just quietly making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year because he's really good at what he does. I have nothing but
It's
respect
kind
for
of like
that.
super lawyers. There are lots of super lawyers in the county, and there are a handful. If you ask other lawyers, they go, oh my God, and they
Yeah.
groan.
Right?
And then there are those that are equally successful or more so successful, but fly under the radar because they're not there to promote themselves. Yes, they want to drive their business, but they're there to serve their clients
Right.
first.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I have nothing but respect. And I have to tell you, Kara and I were talking about this on the way in here this morning. I am so grateful when I run across someone that I know is a good actor and I know my client is going to have a great experience and I know their client is going to be well advised. And I met too, just with one of my clients who is very, very, very particular. This is one of my buyers who really wants, turnkey brand new, but because they don't want to buy a literally brand new home, because in Orange County, those are on postage stamp sized lots. They want a little bit more land. They have to buy a home that someone else has rehabilitated. And I had the best experience with Randy Argue, Pillar and Porch. Yet never met him before. Super communicative, super friendly, super professional. I was out of town at a funeral and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be dark for a couple hours. I'm at a funeral. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, we have an emergency in our family too. No sweat. Get back to me when you can. Blah, blah, blah. We didn't end up doing a deal together. He selected another buyer. And when that fell apart, guess who he called?
A
He's
personal
like,
touch.
He's like, hey, Wendy, I can't believe it. We're back on the market, but I wanted you to know first before I put it in active status. Are your buyers still interested? And I was like, no, unfortunately they're not. They've moved on, but thank you so much. And we have this great rapport. And I will absolutely do business with him at every opportunity I can. I mean, even this morning, he's like, yeah, go ahead. Use my name on the air. And by the way, bring me a buyer for my next project because we want to work together.
And isn't that what we're all hoping you guys will all do, is play well together here in parts? Because that's how your client could have benefited had they still been on the market. They could have been the first to know about something because you built a rapport with
Yes.
the
Yeah.
other
My good
person.
reputation among my peers has gotten my clients into escrow more than you might think. And it's not just because we're buddies. It's because the agents know I know my stuff and I'm not silly. There's not going to be drama in histrionics. I'm not going to be unreasonable and I won't let my clients be unreasonable. It's going to be a smooth, easy, professional transaction.
And Charlene's another one recently, right?
I just met Charlene Behrens actually through her son, Sean. And Charlene Behrens runs a team. She's a real estate investor who also has her license, as most do, just like Randy. And they had rehabilitated this home, and it was beautiful. It was just lovely. It was one of the ones that we wrote a full price offer on. And she got back to me immediately and said, you know what? it was really hard. There were so many offers that were great. My sellers decided to take an all cash offer because it had a faster close. I will absolutely keep you in mind if something else comes up. And it was just this immediate, respectful conversation. And I adore her. I can't wait to have her on the show to talk about being a flipper and what that looks like and how her family has built this business doing it. It's a niche I'm not in personally, and I respect her. And, you know, I hope to think that when they have another project coming, they'll let me know. Because, yeah, Paul, if we just played nicely with each other, we would all get further faster.
All right, so that's the message really for brokers and agents. Play nicer with each other.
Yeah.
What else as we close this? Some parting words for our dear colleagues in this industry, for buyers or for sellers?
Yeah, you know, we really have to remind ourselves to put our clients' needs in front of our own. We just do. You know, and I remember, you know, years and years ago when we were still doing a lot of short sales, I had clients that we had in escrow for a very expensive home. And as we got through escrow, the listing agent was one of the ones with all of the violations and shenanigans and stuff. And he was just pulling too many shenanigans. And the escrow officer actually called me crying because she was telling me a truth that he had told her she couldn't tell me, but she was legally bound to. And my clients were like, we can't do this. We have so much uncertainty now about the integrity of the other side, and we can't invest millions of dollars. You have to get us out of this. And so I was at the 11th hour of making, you know, like $50,000. And I had to do the right thing by my client and say, you're right. Let's pull out after months and months and months, almost a year of work, because short sales aren't fast, and put them back on the market. But it was the right thing to do for the client. And we just have to be mindful of when we do the right thing for the client, whatever that is. If we put their needs in front of our own, we will get more loyalty. We will get more future repeat business. We'll get more referrals from them. You will make more money in the long run. Just stay in it and play the long game. You know, and agents and brokers and buyers and sellers, you got to bone up on the market. You know, just glossing over and reading headlines, especially national headlines about the market, isn't going to cut it. You really need to pay attention to what's happening locally. And so much data is available for all of us. There's no excuse to not pay attention to what's happening locally. Know it.
If somebody was going to buy or sell a business, think of the amount of research that you do into that business and to the trends and the location. Why is it any less if you're going to buy a multi-million-dollar home now?
I have no answer for that.
It's a good comparison.
It's a great point. It's a massive investment, and relative to, you know, a multi-million-dollar property for a business entity is probably the same effective, you know, relationship as, you know, mom and dad home buyer buying a home. You know, it's a massive part of their overall portfolio, and they need to look at it judiciously, and they need to own a little bit of this process. You know, and part of the way you can do that is make sure you are aligning yourself with a broker who will teach you, because we don't expect you to know real estate. That's why you hire us. But we should be educating our clients. So then we know they're making well-informed decisions based upon what's right for them, not what's right for us.
Well, on that point, before Paul introduces our sponsor and we wrap up this show, I do want to give a little subtle plug and perhaps shameless promotion that agents or brokers, if you're listening to this week after week, your eyes are opening and you think there may be a better way to enhance your career by better training, more access to data, things like that, give us a call. Wendy is very open with her knowledge and willing to share it. Plus, we're building up the Veracity Real Estate team and have some openings right now. So if you want to have a chat, give us a call, please. Paul, tell us about our sponsor. They're actually one of the super lawyers in Orange County.
That's what I thought. You know,
Yeah.
same thing here.
Brendan Ford is 2023 super lawyer.
Well, he fits everything that we talked about here today.
Yeah, because that, if I could just say real quick, sorry for interrupting you,
No.
that designation is actually voted upon by his peers.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Play nicely with others.
Well, we're talking about Ford and DiUlio, an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm with experienced attorneys who all had come from the big law firms. So they bring that big league experience to more personalized approach. And that personalized approach is all built around something they just call aligned interest, where their success is related to the value and the results that you achieved, not how much they rack up in billable hours, where they're rewarded for being efficient and effective, and where they engage in the relentless pursuit of their clients' goals, whether in litigation, mediation, or trial. If that's something you're looking for, if you want to be part of this new group that plays well with others and performs equally well, why not check them out? FordDiulio.com, FordDiulio, FordDiulio.com. I think that's what will eventually settle out. I think the good will survive, and this tons of people who are Uber drivers who jumped in will eventually, the easy money, quick hit things. Or the other people, I hope so, because we live in a world, I'm going to give my own little pontification here, where noise generates attention. And the easiest way to make noise is to scream. And so the screamers, the loud, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get this person, I'm aggressive, I do that. When people, wow, that's what I got to have. I wonder if that really is what works in the long run, for not just for most companies, but for most of their clients. Just get a lawyer who'll scream, get a broker who'll come in and swagger and demand, push everybody around. It's what I want, loud, aggressive, boy, that's all I'm looking for.
Right. Well, I'm not saying you need someone who is Mary Poppins.
Right.
Who everyone, lines up behind her and sings a song, because I'm not Mary Poppins. You've heard me. I get snarky, I get direct, and I don't work with every client. If there's a client that wants me to do things that are contrary to what I think are in their best interest or my best interest, I will happily say no. No. But the cream should rise to the top. I think that we will see, a tightening of the industry, and I think we'll see a little bit more esprit de corps as people awaken to the reality that what we do is potentially highly litigious. And an accidental misstep will not protect you from litigation.
And I think that's what kind of has saved people in the past. Well, if I screw up, so what? I'll just go on to the next one here.
Yeah.
And I don't think that those days are as prevalent as they once were. I had terrible experiences with realtors. I never thought of suing. I just got mad, so I'll never deal with them again.
Yeah.
And they're probably okay, because you're probably not going to buy a house for another 20 years, so who cares? I think it's too much of that bad behavior has been glossed over and sanctioned.
And the challenge, Paul, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that we in the industry who are licensed are not allowed to share that bad behavior information with the public. We're not allowed to.
I know, and that's what drives us all crazy in the public. Why did you tell me this guy was a bum or this person?
Because I can actually be sanctioned. Even if the person about whom I'm speaking doesn't say anything, my governing body can.
Yeah.
And, I will get my hand slapped for telling the truth.
Same thing with doctors and lawyers and all that stuff. And,
It sucks. It really sucks. So all I can say is, consumers, if you had a bad experience with anything, make it known. There are many public platforms where you can say this was a horrible experience.
And vice versa.
Yeah, and yes, like I said, I reached out to both Randy and Charlene and said, may I use your name and compliment you on air? Because I think that if we would all just tell each other when we're doing the right thing, more of us will be inclined to do the right thing.
Right.
That's not so hard.
That's the point.
Yeah. So,
all right. Well, wow. That was a lot more than I expected here today.
Yeah.
A very strong point of view to start the year.
Oh, you know me.
Can I ask you one more quick question?
Sure.
I didn't get my quick question in today.
I'm surprised.
Are we living in a world? This is my debate all the time about life in general, whether it's politics or real estate or anything. Are we living in a world of perception is reality, where the facts really don't matter? The facts are fungible. The facts are I got my facts, you got your facts here. It's feelings. I don't know, that doesn't feel right. That does feel right. That feels like the way I should do it. That feels like the right person to do with. That feels like we're always going, how does it feel? And I'm like, well, feeling's part of it, but aren't facts important anymore here?
Even I am surprised occasionally when I have presumptions about what's happening in the marketplace and I go to check the data and I realize I'm wrong. Yes, data is not 100% reliable, because remember, the data that I pull was inputted by other realtors.
Right.
And they have varying degrees of competency. So the data's not, but when you get, 100 or thousands of data points, you can at least make some smarter assumptions. But yes, we've all talked about this. Societally, we've moved into a place where we distrust facts.
Absolutely.
Facts.
And experts.
We distrust them. Yeah. So everyone is suspicious. Everyone is looking for the man behind the curtain, and that's unfortunate, because all we have are facts. All we have is data. All I can tell you is what I saw happen yesterday. All I can tell you is I had an appointment to show a vacant home, and when I arrived at my appointment time, there were two people in front of me. This is what's really happening. And we have to listen and believe the people that we've chosen to align ourselves with, that they're telling us the truth.
And that's the point. Data is important, but context for that data is even
Yes.
more important. And that's why we need to rely upon trusted advisors and experts to interpret the data based on context.
Yes.
And maybe it's because we have too much data. We're flooded with data.
I think it is. And,
You know, I used to
yeah.
not have access to the MLS data, and I used to not have access to a lot of this stuff. You're talking about real estate. Now, people do. And stocks are the perfect example. I have more data than I ever do, and I don't know what to do anymore.
Right, right. We need someone to guide us through that. Well, and this is a random, but I think relevant example. I hired a plumber to come to my house, and let me just tell you, Alan and Melissa, Acute Plumbing, I love them.
Okay, another good plug today.
Love them. They helped me install my new tankless hot water heater. And while Alan was there, I said, hey, I got a notice from the city because I live in a very old neighborhood. And my gas meter is out at the curb. And they're saying you need to move it up to the house. And he looked at it. He checked everything out. And he's like, no, don't spend the money doing that yet. You don't have an issue yet. I'll keep an eye on it. If and when there's an issue, then we'll talk about it then. I was like, thank you.
There you go.
Because I thought I had to do this. He was like, no, you don't. But he's the expert.
Right.
So there you go.
Okay, good stuff. Take us out.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. So follow me on Instagram, The Real Wendy Ross, or of course, listen to this podcast in the library, wherever you most like to listen to your podcasts.